Now tonight, you all had many things you probably could be doing this evening, and you chose to come here, which we greatly appreciate. So thank you for choosing us tonight. We are going to hear from a few of our volunteers, and they're going to talk about some of their favorite things in this building. We are an all-volunteer organization, so we're always looking for more. If that's something you think you'd be interested in, speak to some of us tonight. Todd's the only one brave enough to wear his name tag. Or come back to something that we're open and speak to the volunteer that's working that day and ask them why they do it. Why do they come in here and give us their time, and how long have they been doing it, and what does it mean to be a volunteer here? The second thing is we are also in the midst of a dedicated member campaign. And our goal is to add 100 new members to our membership roll by May of 2025. So we're well on our way to that. But maybe tonight's the night you're going to think that you would like to become a member. There will be volunteers out at the front desk with that information when we're finished here tonight. If you aren't prepared to make that decision tonight, take that paper home with you and bring it back when we're open, or put it in the mail. We are open on average 17 hours a week, which is amazing. And there are at least two volunteers on every shift. There are very few small organizations like us that are able to say that. So we are blessed with great volunteers and great members. And while you're out there thinking about becoming a member, right off your left-hand elbow is the donation box. So if you'd like to put a donation in, we'd also appreciate that. We're not a county historical society, so we don't get any money from the state. Nobody pays the bills in this building except us. So any of those donations that you can give to us, we greatly appreciate. Okay, I think that's everything. Volunteers, members, donations. If you didn't sign in, that's over here, and just sometime during the evening, make your way over there, get a rounder ticket, and because we're going to raffle off something at the end of the evening tonight.
Had to come in.
Okay. Our first speaker tonight is Mary Ann Collins, and she's going to tell you about one of her favorites.
My picnic basket, not Little Red Riding Hood. Okay. She told you about the fact that we are always looking for volunteers. And once you get in this building is when you'll begin to see that there are fascinating things. And maybe that will spur you to think about becoming a volunteer. Let me wet your whistle a little bit with one of my favorite collections. I kind of oversee the business room upstairs, so there's quite an assortment of stuff that has come in from businesses that have been around Grove City since way back into the early 1800s. And if I can wet your whistle just a little bit with one of my favorite collections, think back to a time when there was no such thing as Bitcoin. The only kind of coin that you dealt with if you wanted to save any pennies were piggy banks. So let me take you through my collection of piggy banks that's upstairs in my business room. Next month it will be on display in the library. I'll tell you about that later. Community library. I'll tell you about that later. But we go all the way back to the early 1800s. There was a business in Grove City called C.L. Irwin, and they gave their customers the Irwin Savings Bank. And I'll kind of put these on display maybe around, and you can look at them later. I don't want to start passing them, because if I start passing them, then you won't pay attention to the next speaker. It says here, a penny saved now and then makes $1 by and by. We're now prepared to show you a line of wallpaper that you will want. And you know what? They also were a sporting goods store. So this goes back to the early 1800s. And in most of all the rest of my collection is going to have to do with banks that were in town. And one of the earliest banks was the Grove City Savings and Trust Company. And this copper piggy bank is what they must have given out to their customers. You stuck your money in here and you unscrewed the bottom to get it out. If you wanted to take it to the bank, I guess. We're just getting started here. And then we advance a lot more years, and the Grove City National Bank wanted to make sure that you could put your money in. I can't open any of these. If I could, there's nothing in there. It would be in the donation box. But I assume Grove City National Bank gave that out to a child who would open this, whose parents would open the savings account. I have them numbered kind of for a reason. The Liberty Bell has always been a symbol of freedom to our country, and the Grove City National Bank, they were the bank that gave the most piggy banks out, or that we have the collection of, let's put it that way. That one we have the key for also, but it was to be a replica of the Liberty Bank, and their name is inscribed on the front, the Grove City National Bank. But it also says, proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all the inhabitants thereof. And that's Leviticus. And I bet you a bank today would probably not put a piggy bank out with scripture on it. Okay, so then we have, oh, Grove City National Bank was really prolific. This was the next one that came down the pike. Says on the bottom, start with a coin, end with a barrel of money. Oh, some child probably got this little plastic gizmo to write along with. You put the money in there, it's still in there. And then they advanced a little bit to where you could count your money. They handed out one that had a little click on the side, and your money total would add up. Doesn't work anymore, but it did at one time. And then later on, they thought it was more important to tell you the date rather than the amount of money. So the Grove City National Bank came and gave out one that said the time. And it even had, I think at one time, there was some way on the back to hook it on the walls in your office or in your kitchen or wherever. And on my last shelf here, oh my goodness, we go next to National City Bank has come to town. Now Grove City National, First National, they're no longer in business. Along the way, National City had a piggy bank that was plastic for the children. And then, getting down to the end, the other corner of First National Bank, then this one was similar to this one over here, if you remember. Okay, oh, this one's still shiny, it's not quite as old. The money went in at the front, came out down there, but that one was available in my collection. And then First Seneca was in town at one time. And they allowed you to see what was accumulating all the time in your piggy bank because you could put your coin designations in there. And lastly, this, I'm going to give you a little bit of detail on this one. Northwest Bank had this piggy bank that they handed out. They handed it out on their 50th anniversary. On the back of this one, inside is a replica of the Liberty Bell. Okay. All right, I'm reading here. Originally ordered to commemorate the 50th year of Pennsylvania under Penn's charter in 1701, the Liberty Bell was cast by two people in London, shipped to the United States, but it didn't get here in time for that 50th anniversary commemoration. When it finally got here, they tested it and it was cracked. It cracked. So they had to hire two people from the company of Pass and Stowe to recast it or repair it. And they were a Philadelphia foundry. And then on July 4th, 1776, the newly written Declaration of Independence was read to the Continental Congress in the State House. 4 days later, the bell was rung to alert, it wasn't ready, but 4 days later it was, and it was rung to, oh, it's far away in small print. It was read to the Continental Congress in the State House. 4 days later, the bell was rung to alert the people to the public reading of the Declaration of Independence. All right. As a result, the Pennsylvania House has become known as Independence Hall, and the bell, the revered symbol of the occasion, became our Liberty Bell. The Liberty Bell served many occasions until 1835, when the bell cracked again while tolling for the funeral of Chief Justice John Marshall. They chose this to give as a symbol for their 50th anniversary. That's my collection, and there are very interesting collections throughout this building. Our organization has agreed to fill a display case at the community library beginning next month and continuing clear through the end of 2025. People who take care of various rooms in the building, like I do, will have their things on display month by month. So if you would, throughout beginning next month and throughout the remainder of this year and next year, stop by and look at that display. For quite a long time, the library didn't have anybody filling that particular display until Lori McCandless took it upon herself to find a way to display things a few months back in the summertime.
The library contacted me and
Okay.
asked if we would be interested, so.
And so she and her daughter and some others had displays in there. The most recent one, if you were in the library, were all of those little rubber duckies. There were how many in that
Oh, I
case?
don't know how many.
I think there
She
were
has
60,
hundreds of
50
them.
or 60 in the case, and she said that Mallory, her daughter, has many, many more at home. And it was a particularly interesting event for the children because they had been studying in their summer reading program related materials. So stop by sometime and see what display is in each month, and thank you.
Marianne, the first one you showed from C.L. Irwin, I believe that is the company that was on the corner here where the Bookends is right now.
Okay,
And it was partially a bookstore, and they sold wallpaper and a lot of other things.
and sporting goods. I saw you in your phone and I thought, he's going to tell me that I said something wrong. Thank you. Mary
I
Ann.
figured he'd just remember.
I did, I have a hard time.
I'm done. Somebody else.
All right. All right. Our next presenter is John Horn, who's doing double duty here tonight, running the camera, and he also has some pictures to show you.
1 second to get everything ready here. Which was, just a second. Come on.
You know what it is?
Yeah, just,
Arrow?
that should work, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it was built on the chassis of a Winton Big Six touring car from 1917 model. And it was the body then, would you push it again? Was built by the McKay Carriage Company, also here in Grove City. And they took the touring car body off and lengthened the chassis and built this car on that chassis. He used it throughout the campaign in 2018. He took it various places around the country, including, I guess he used it for several vacation trips. Up until 2026. That was the,
19.
or 1920. Never mind.
Sorry.
That was the last license plate that was on it when it finally was sold. But it got 3 miles to the gallon of gas. It was 33 feet long and 16 feet high. I mean, it was big and heavy. So, to give you, want to hit it again? Okay, there's the back. He had a platform on the back, just like a railroad car, that he used for his campaign speeches when he was touring around. And it would sleep 4 people. And presumably he took his wife and maybe 1 or 2 of his children along with him on the campaign tour. They don't go into that much detail. But that's what it was. Now, in about 1956, he had kept it all that time, apparently, although it apparently was never licensed after 26. But his wife, he died a little bit in the earlier 50s, and his wife sold it to James Melton, who was a famous opera singer, who also had a car collection down in Florida. And Melton refurbished it. This picture is actually, the last 2 pictures are actually after Melton had it. We haven't found any pictures in that ensuing number of years. But, so, and, okay, next picture. Okay. It wound up ultimately at Imperial Palace in Las Vegas. And they repainted it a little bit and so forth and used it in their museum, and as far as I know, it's still there. I wasn't able to find anything past that. But, and next picture. Okay, this is a view inside, looking out the front windshield. You can see, it isn't a great picture, but you can see there's a table here that was used for eating. And those tables and seats converted to 4-bunk beds, just like a Pullman car. Next. This is looking the other way, looking toward the back. You can see the table and chairs and some of the other windows, curtains, etc. And one last. Okay. You don't also have
Didn't think of it.
So that is all the pictures we have of it. There was some information, we've got a book here that Lori pretty well combined or put together that has several other incidents along through its history. But one of them was an interview, newspaper interview at someplace in Iowa, I believe, which was in the someplace around 1920, thereabouts, 24, where they interviewed him on a return trip from California. And one of the things in the interview mentioned that there was a chauffeur. So I don't know who else besides he and his wife were there besides the chauffeur. But they mentioned that they covered 1,800 miles in 10.5 days. So they were covering 180 miles a day in that thing. I guess when Melton got it, one of the things he did add was power steering. Because these cars and that vintage were not easy to drive.
The Winton was manufactured in Cleveland.
Cleveland,
I
Yeah.
was just at an antique car museum in Fairbanks last week, and they had a Winton in there,
yeah,
and it was just beautiful, and I was telling the co-founder of the museum
yeah.
about the Winton we had here in
Yeah,
Grove City,
right.
so he was very interested in
Yeah,
hearing
it
the
was
story.
considered a luxury vehicle in its day. They finally quit making cars someplace in the mid-20s, I believe, and went into making diesel engines, and ultimately it was absorbed by General Motors and selling diesel marine engines. Yes.
The Winton engine blocks were the basis for their most popular locomotive engine block for General Motors,
Oh,
for EMD, a Winton.
uh-huh,
It's ironic that he had one of those engine blocks in his vehicle when his company ultimately built the most popular engine block for General Electric's railroad locomotives,
oh, okay,
and they were competitors.
yeah, yeah. Interesting, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mary Ann, you would be next.
Yeah.
I won the Halloween parade, and Milton was supposed to come, and he never showed up, so they finally just took a picture of me, and then
Well, those are hard acts to follow, aren't they?
used to
Nice
have it
luxury
somewhere.
car and a nice
Super.
piggy bank collection, so, but I'm here to present to you the medical room that is located upstairs on the second floor. And as I look into the room, I see a picture of Betty Jo White. She's the second picture from the left. And she was the one that set up the medical room for the most part. You know, it was her efforts and her passion for medicine. She wanted to set up the medical room. So I want to show you how medicine has changed, and you all know that from the past. How medicine has really changed. I don't know if it's for the good or the bad, but it seems like it was simpler way back when. So B.J. White set up the room and organized it and has maintained it through the years. On entry, the walls show pictures of the early hospitals from 1888 to 1964. One picture on the wall even shows a delivery man delivering eggs to the old hospital that's on the wall there. And B.J. White said she saw that man that day. She took the picture of the man delivering the eggs. So, and he was in horse and buggy, I think, so you know that that was a long time ago. The left wall of the room also includes the Bashline family, and basically Orwin Bashline and his three sons, who were Wayne and Woody and Dawn Bashline. And many of you knew the Bashlines, and there's many family books in the library too here about the Bashlines. They also had at the Bashline Hospital a physician's training program. They trained physicians, and the physicians lived there on Pine Street there in an apartment building. And they had a nursing school also, and you can see some capes and so forth upstairs that the nursing students wore when they were in the program. Far cry from what is being worn today in many of the hospital training schools. Although I trained in a hospital, we wore blue dresses with white aprons over top, and white stockings and shoes, and we really had to wear them. I know one time I got written
You
up
knew
for,
who was the nurses and who was the
anyway, but
janitors.
not for Bashline, but from Meadville City, and I got written up because my left inner shoestring and my right foot was dirty. So, I I really had a hard time many times understanding some of that, but a bed had run over it early in the day, but they didn't care about that. But it was so fun back then. Progression through the years shows the combining of the Grove City Hospital and the Bashline Hospital. And that used to be not so good of a situation. You know, Bashline and Grove City were all the best of friends. For whatever reason, I don't really know. One was considered a medical doctor practice, one was considered an osteopathic practice, and they felt that there was a big difference, but really, I don't think there was a difference at all. It's just that the osteopaths took a class in osteopathy, so they had an extra class in my book, but many didn't look at it that way. And then the Grove City Medical Center came along in September of 1965. Oak Hill was closed then, and it lasted until November of '81, ending up with, now we are owned by Allegheny Health Network, which came into being in August 19th of 1921. So many of you probably go to Allegheny Health Network, which is out Broad Street Extension. So let's see what we have in the room. There's a blood pressure cuff, and blood pressure cuff was invented in 1881, and wasn't invented by anyone in this country. It was invented by a Samuel Friedman. Carl Ritter was Bosch stethoscope in 1860s. So there is an authentic blood pressure cuff on the wall and a stethoscope, and those are authentic. And BJ Wade is very proud of those too, and we all should be able, when we were able to get them, she was able to get them. So we all know about having our blood pressure taken, systolic and diastolic pressures, and that unit up there is able to do that also, but that wasn't always the case. The medical room has, an authentic. And that blood pressure cuff was used by Orwin Bashline, and they say maybe Woodrow. Other items in the room include medicines that were available from the drugstores then. It was Harvs and DeFrancis. They were in little bottles, many of them. The morphines and so forth. There wasn't quite as many drugs on the market then as there is now with our Jardian's Dancing Lady and all these things that we see. Buy this, buy that for whatever condition we can come up with. And and the bottles are really nice to look at, you know, to think that you walked into DeFrance's drugstore right here on Broad Street and got your medicine right away. There's uniforms upstairs are a Navy uniform from Dr. Menzies, and there is a nurse uniform from Jane Cornelius. There's scrubs up there. There's a medical bag of Dr. Menzies and also Jonathan Price. Crutches are upstairs. There's a wheelchair, and that wheelchair was actually made by a patient who was in Grove City Hospital. It's a wooden chair, and it is made through the ages here. There's surgical instruments up there in a showcase, and they were Dr. Rossman's instruments, and most of them are amputee type instruments. We have bedpans of all descriptions: glass bedpans, plastic bedpans, porcelain bedpans, metal bedpans, and they are all on display. So it's kind of nice to see how far we've come. Doctors of the hospital, which is on the walls of the UPMC, have been copied and placed in a 3-ring notebook in a library room in this society. And that's out front. The library room is up front here to the right. And John Bourne, who's here, took these pictures that were taken down during the changeover from being Grove City Medical Center to the Allegheny Network. They were taken down off the walls. At one time they were displayed at the hospital, and he has copied them all, and they are in a notebook out front. And we have been complimented, or I have been heard compliments about our being able to get our doctors pictures back to where we can see them now. They were being stored in a storage place over in the basement of Trinity Nursing Home, which is now Quality Life. So we retrieved those. The Bashline Hospital at the corner of Pine and Center was started in 1923. It was also Bashline Rossman Hospital, and there were 23 beds there at the time. So you can see how we have progressed. And that is now a bank now. That old hospital that was at the corner of Pine and Center is now a bank. It was grazed and is now a bank. But Oak Hill was also grazed, Oak Hill Hospital, which is up around Madison Avenue. So please take advantage and look at the medical room and see the history of medical people, buildings, supplies of the past, and I guess see how fortunate you are, or see how much progress we made. And look in your November newsletter for 2 physicians from the 1850s to the 1900s, which will be Dr. Martin and Nicholas Van Eman. We are trying to collect some history on physicians that were earlier than the 1900s. So we're trying to find their pictures and so forth in some of the medical colleges that they went to and graduated from. So I think that's all I have to say, and I don't know if you have any questions. I do hope that you would go up and enjoy the room, but it's got a lot of history in it.
The crutches that you mentioned were my great-grandmother's. She was a nurse at the Oddfellows, and that was like more of a nursing home than way back when. And she, I guess, had those crutches there, and she must have, whether she took them or they gave them to her when she left, but she also did a lot of private duty nursing in the area, and she would go and live in the home and take care of the patient there. So she did that after she left the Oddfellows. So I had those crutches and I didn't know what to do with them. They're here.
I find out that, home care was what was done back in the earlier years. Home care, we didn't have the hospitals, people couldn't get to the hospitals. And the hospital, 23 beds for this whole Rose City area is not very many beds. And you consider that they were delivering babies in these hospitals. Bashline Rossman Hospital delivered babies, they did surgeries, they did the whole 9 yards of care down at that corner. And at one time I was a dietary aide down at the corner of Pine Street and Center Street. I come from high school and work in the kitchens and feed doctors and nurses suppers there. I can remember Mrs. Deal, she was quite a character. And her peanut butter prunes just did not go very well. Service to those nurses, and doctors coming in very tired. I got kind of some pretty good looks at them too. But Mrs. Deal had quite a menu, let's just say. And but she was quite a character. That's all I can say about her. But we liked her, and everybody liked her. Yeah. They had an elevator down in the old Bashline Rossman Hospital, but it was pulled by a rope, and the kitchen put trays on the pads, and then the rope was pulled, and the trays would go up to the 2nd floor, and so forth. And then they could get them off the elevator upstairs and take them to the rooms for the patients that were in-house at that time. It was a happy time. I loved that time. And, and it was, this day and age, probably we wouldn't be allowed to say, but, I was the younger of the bunch down there, so that, girlie, can I have this, can I have that, and nowadays, I don't think they look too highly on that, but, well, I knew who they meant, that's for sure. Yeah. But you should have a whole tray of Jell-O or something be spilled in the elevator. Oh my, that was the best of days. But just picking them up and went on, But It was fun, so we had people.
All right, Laura, you be next.
I've done enough talking already.
Yeah.
Okay, my story is one of discovery, as I discovered things here in the building. About 10 years ago, after I retired, I started researching our family genealogy. My mother and my grandmother had been our genealogists in the family, so when they were gone, I inherited all of their files. And I was going through them one day, and I found this faded document, 2-page history of the Oakes family. Now, my 4th great grandparents were Samuel Oakes and his wife, Hannah. And they had 10 children, and the oldest of which was Robert Oakes, and he was my 3rd great grandfather. And in this family history, there's one teeny tiny paragraph that talks about their journey to America. And it said they left Liverpool, England on a sailing vessel in January, arriving in New York City 5 weeks later. So they, in essence, spent the winter crossing the Atlantic. From here to Buffalo, New York by train, excuse me, thence by canal boat to Greenville, arriving March 4th, 1851. Well, I just got done with an Alaska cruise, and 1 week on the ship was enough for me. The ship, how many times bigger than what they crossed the Atlantic on? This old family history lists all 10 of the Oakes children, and one of them that caught my attention was Rachel. And it gives her date of birth as, let me see, she was born 1838, died 1907, and she was wife of Joseph Filer. And in another of my mom's notes, I found that Joseph Filer was the proprietor of a hotel here in Grove City. And I thought, well, gee, I just joined the Historical Society and I needed to do some research. Well, I didn't have to go very far in my own papers, and here my grandmother had clipped this article from the Allied News, and it was dated January 22nd, 1979. And it was written by our own Lillian Rear. And here she was doing a series of articles, which she had done all this historical research on Grove City, and she did one story at a time for the Allied News, and they published this. And this one made the front page. So there's the Filer house, Rachel and Joe's hotel in Grove City, right on the front page of the paper. Well, I thought, we had just published a book called Wolf Creek Legacy, and it's a compilation of Lillian's stories. And sure enough, right here on page 40 is that same picture and Lillian's write-up, her research of the Filer House Hotel. So the 1909 history of Mercer County, which we have in our library, states that Joseph came to America with Rachel's family. So I guess he was acquainted with my 4th great grandfather, Samuel. And they all came from Staffordshire, England, to Pennsylvania together. And as we went along, I came across the picture. Marianne talked about the business room upstairs, and here's this same picture of the hotel that was in the article and in the book. And this picture, it states on the back of it that it was the Filer House and the City Drugstore, and it was dated 1890. You probably can't see from there, but there is a second building attached here, and that was a drugstore, And there was a door inside the hotel that opened right into the drugstore, so. And one thing of interest that I found was alcohol was not allowed in Grove City, but the drugstore sold alcohol. The hotel provided canes for the men. Those canes were hollow, so they could march right across to the drugstore and have their hollow cane filled with alcohol and be on their way. So much for prohibition. But this photo also identifies the several men that were in this picture. And the very last one, the kid with hands on hips, ex-husband. So I don't know who donated the picture, but that's the caption. Doesn't say who he is. So then, as I continued the discovery here, I was up in the business room working. There's a file cabinet up there in one corner with a lot of paper files. And I just felt that there was something calling me out in that room. And I know this building is certified haunted, but I don't believe in ghosts. But I still had this urge that something was calling my name. So I went over to that corner and I discovered this picture of Rachel and Joe Fowler. It's like they were calling out to me. And even though they're relatives, Rachel was my third grade aunt and he's Joe's third grade uncle, I had never seen a picture of them before, so that was interesting. Then one other day I was working in our publications room and just going through, I don't know whether I was filing something in there, but we have a big oversized map and picture case, and I found another picture of the hotel. Wasn't looking for it, just found it. This is an older picture because the building next door isn't there. Now on the very side of it you can see the roof of a little building, and you can come up and look at these later. But I assume that's their son Charles's livery stable. He had a stable behind the hotel. Because this is horse and buggy days.
This is the hotel.
Where was the hotel
Where is it?
located? It was located where Citizens Bank is now.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways, then the other discovery I made, I was going to do this presentation 3 years ago. So I come in early and ran upstairs to the business room to gather these things together. And here I found this keychain laying there. And this is the keys. This the keys, key ring. It says Filer House, Grove City, PA, room number 1. So here I was holding this set of keys that my third grade Aunt Rachel probably walked around with her apron pocket, let somebody into that room, and then went in later to clean it. So what a discovery that has been. Now the hotel itself was built in the late 1870s by George Washabaugh, and then Joseph and Rachel purchased it in 1882 after he retired from the coal mining business. And the other buildings next door, the one was the drugstore as I mentioned, but then there was a post office there, and then there was a grocery store. And I think you can see it in this one, you can see the drive. It says on it, Shoes and Notions, over on that side. Now, Joseph died in 1896, but Rachel continued to operate that hotel until 1907, and that was the year it was torn down. The Filers had 5 children, 4 boys and a girl. Their son Charles owned the livery stable. Their daughter Lizzie worked in the dining room of the hotel, and their youngest son James was a clerk at the hotel. Their son Amos moved to Sharon, and that's where It would be his Uncle Robert, my third great grandfather, lived in Sharon, so he ended up over there. And their oldest son, William, had 5 sons. And you all might recognize them as the 5 Filer brothers. It was a well-known canvas business in Grove City. So, you can see from these artifacts, I learned so much about my family history. The article in the book tells a lot more than what I covered. There's also a hotel registry upstairs. I didn't bring it down. It goes from 1880 to 1882, I believe, but it's up there in the business room. And then from our genealogists here, Jane Cleary and Kathy Coulter, I learned about a website called Find a Grave. It's findagrave.com. So just on a whim, I researched that, excuse me, and I found that Rachel and Joe are buried in Woodland Cemetery, very prominent headstone, right along 173. So I wave hello to Rachel and Joe every time I go by. And then just coincidentally, just down a little ways from their tombstone is Washabaw tombstone, the people that they bought the hotel from. So, and the other thing that was so helpful are the Mercer County histories that are in our library. We have several of them. I think one dates back to 1860. We have several through the years. You can learn so much about our area and the families in the area from those history books. And it's you know, just fascinating what you learn. So the other thing is this book that we publish, and I think Becky's going to have more about that in a little bit. And donating items here. You know, if the Filer family would have just kept this in a storage tote in the attic or in the basement, I would have never discovered all of this. So it's really important to pass on those things to someone who will protect them and cherish them. So great for sharing with the community. Any questions with what I have? Thank you, Marianne. It seems like every time I went up to that room, there was something new that was there for me to discover. And I'm sorry, this weather change.
I'm not from here. I'm not from here.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
That was Marianne's. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
We should put 2 pies in there. Thank you.
Pardon me?
Sorry.
All right. When I was in junior high school, I had a geography teacher by the name of Lenny B. James. And Lenny B. James just opened the world to me, of maps and literally the world. We had traveled, we had done some things, but not a whole lot. And we had a unit on Pennsylvania. And for extra credit, we were allowed to do projects. So, here is my Pennsylvania project. Now this would have been in the mid-1950s, so this was before sewing machines did any fancy, at least our sewing machine did any fancy embroidery. By some of the stitching, I think my mother may have helped with this. But this is my tablecloth, and then I had the napkins that showed the mountain laurel, the ruffled grouse, the keystone, and the hemlock, all symbols of Grove City. I found these in a drawer that had been in a plastic bag literally since the 1950s. Then we went on and we studied Australia. Well, I'm not a person that had a bucket list, but I wanted to go to Australia.
And I got there. We went in 2003. And here is my rendition of Australia. And notice, I signed that very prominently, Mary Margaret Fowler. How many of you know that my name is Mary Margaret? Probably not many of you. But that was my extra credit, because I just loved maps and I liked sewing. So those were my fun projects. So many years pass, and my teaching career was coming to an end, and I was having a midlife career change, not crises. And I got a real estate license, and I started to work for a real estate company that had maps. And the first map that I encountered was this. It is made of linen and covered with a plastic coating. And it hung in the real estate office on this hook, just on a nail, just hung in Harshaw's real estate for years. There's no date on the map. But it is by the wards of Grove City. And all the areas are marked, and it's marked with the owners. You can see all the lots.
Yeah.
Some are empty, some have names on. And I looked up, this is 4th Ward. I looked up the house we owned on Woodland Avenue, and the name on it was Firth. The Firths were the people that built the house, and they lived there from 1910 when they built the house to 1918. So I'm assuming that's the period of time for this map. Now you can look, if you live in the borough, you could probably find your lot and see if somebody had built a house on it. The house is actually on it, and pretty much to scale. So, you know, they're just fun to look back at. It's fragile, but it's also very, very interesting. Then, this is an insurance map that came from Harshaw's Insurance. And I want to read you what's literally between. There's writing on a page, and then there's a map, and then there's the same writing on the next page. Every page, and it says, this map is not transferable and must not be copied. It is copyrighted by the property of Sanborn Map Company. It is not to be surrendered to any agent, special agent, or company except on written order of the Sanborn Map Company. So they meant business. And this was a fire map. And it had all the buildings that were available at that time. This was from 1928. So all the buildings that were here in 1928 were listed here. And they were coded. I said it was a fire map. So if a building was yellow, it was frame. If it was red, it was brick. If it was blue, it was stone. If it was gray, it was iron. If it was brown, it was fireproof. And we have a great big sign down in the basement advertising the Pengrove Hotel as fireproof. But it's not listed as brown. So it wasn't considered fireproof by the insurance companies. So shortly after we moved to town, we moved to Grove City in 1971. I was talking with Jim Perry, who was the mayor. And there was a feeling in the town that parts of 4th Ward, Grove City has 5 wards, and 4th Ward was where we lived. We lived at the corner of Madison and Woodland. But further up, like Oak Hill and up the hill, was known as Snob Hill. I heard that several times. We didn't live in Snob Hill. But Jim Perry told me the story that John McCune, who was one of the principals of Cooper and who had built the Circle House, did not want a bridge across Wolf Creek that would bring traffic from North Broad Street across the creek and straight up to his house. He didn't want that, and he had enough pull in the town to have an impact on this. The Chestnut Street, I don't know what it's called now, but the Chestnut Street Bridge was built in 1930. And here on this map, I find, this is 4th Ward, and here is Wolf Creek, and penciled in are 3 proposed places for the bridge. One coming across and going up the alley behind Woodland Avenue. One is going straight up Woodland Avenue, and one is going up Oakland Avenue. So obviously, the one that would connect to the alley won out, and John McCune apparently had some influence on that. Now, what is the oldest map we have in the building? Out in the hallway here, we have a map that was given to us by Dick Stevenson when he closed his offices. It is an 1860 map of Mercer County. Weighs a ton, and we had Randy Volz come and hang it and put new lighting in the hallway so that you could see it. The map had actually belonged to Dick's grandfather, who was W.C. McClellan, and it hung in his office when he was in public life. When the McBrides closed their law office, they had the same map in their conference room. It was not framed. They gave it to us, and we had it framed. It cost $755 to have it framed, and it is now on loan to Grove City College. We still own it, but Grove City College has the use of it. We have, these maps are in a map chest. Laurie made reference to it. There's some pictures in them also, but in the middle room back here, we have map chests where we keep these things. And we have an old oak map chest. We had an intern several years ago who lived on Rainy Avenue. He was walking home, walked up East Main Street, up Memorial, cut through the alley to Rainy Avenue, and there sitting out at the curb was an oak map chest. So he knocked on the door, and it was a retired geography professor from Slippery Rock, I think. And he said, "What are you doing with that?" And it was out for the garbage. So he loaded that in his Ford Probe. I can't imagine how he did, but we have it. It's a neat old map chest. So this is where our maps are. Now, sometime in my real estate career, financing became interesting, and the banks started to demand floodplain certification. What's a floodplain? Well, if you lived in a floodplain, you had to have flood insurance, and flood insurance was more expensive sometimes than homeowners insurance. So we had to certify if the house was in a floodplain. How do we know that? I can guess that the houses along Pine Street that back up to the Pricker probably is a floodplain, but how do we know? So I called Harrisburg. I don't remember who I called, and I said, do you have floodplain maps? Yes. I said, I'd like a set of them. Oh, we can't give them out. And I said, well, we need them. We can't certify properties when we don't know about the floodplain, so we can't give them out. I said, well, send me a set, I'll make copies of them and return them. We can't do that. Maybe it goes back to the disclaimer. No. I think I went to Dick Stevenson and got my floodplain maps. This is the only set that was in Grove City, and I have Grove City Borough and all the townships. So they are here. Now, all this information is online. However, I looked online, and they're very difficult to read. So if you ever question if something is in a floodplain, these maps are upstairs in the real estate room, and they're much easier to read. There's two floodplains. There's a 500-year and a 100-year, and they're very accurate, so these are very good. When Chuck Bestwick sold Parshaw's real estate and finally closed the office, I actually stole this map one time. He had sold the company and everything in the building. Well, I didn't want that map leaving Grove City, so I took it home. We were just getting organized down here. I swear, the first time Chuck came in the building, where's that map? And of course, the secretary ratted on me, so I had to. But he donated all the maps. This is where we got all the things. If you go up in the real estate room, all the pictures that are up there, if you had a house that was sold, and it was probably sold by Harshaw's Real Estate, there's a picture of it up there in file drawers, a fan file. There's dozens of them. There is also up there the plot plan developments of the 5 wards of Grove City, and all the sketches and the developers' plans. There is also communication between letters from people wanting to buy land or looking for lots. So there's, in the top drawer of the file cabinet, there's just a wealth of information on the development of Grove City. So not just maps, but there's the development of Grove City up there also. Okay, that's the maps.
My treasure are the books that are in this building, that are on the bookcase here. And in 1998, Grove City celebrated their bicentennial. It was an amazing group of citizens that put on a party that will never be duplicated. I don't see how. The Historical Society was born out of that celebration. They wrote a musical and performed it out at the park. We have all that information upstairs. But another thing that they put together was this book, Reflections, and it truly is, that's what it is. It reflects the past of Grove City. One of the reflections that I thought was pretty good was King's Shoe Store, and how it started out from Martin King to Don King to Kevin King to Mary Ann and Bill Collins, until they decided to retire from retail life in 1996. And you can see it's just a little reflection of that. That's one of the things in here. And then John talked about the Fithians. There was a mansion up on Oak Hill that should never have been in Grove City. It should have been on 5th Avenue in Pittsburgh, and that was the Fithian Mansion, and the little bit that I found out about it. And of course, it's been torn down. It was turned into the Bashline Hospital for a little while, and then it was torn down. It is no more, but there's a little bit in here about that. One of the treasures of this book is, there's a timeline in the back here, what was going on in the world, what was going on in Grove City, and the index is phenomenal. They did an outstanding job. Reflections of Our Past is available for $10. Then, this Historical Society, when they first formed...
Move over here, we'll be on over.
She's in the camera. Oh.
Okay.
The Historical Society had a very active publishing committee for some time, led by Lillian Reynolds Rear. And this is the first book that they published, yes, Grove City the Way We Were. And that's what's in here, the way we were. It's a lot of pictures and articles. This is a map of all those coal mines that were in the area. We're standing on one probably. And they're all numbered, and here they are listed, and then a short description of where that coal mine can be found. This is a story I've got to research a little bit more. Do you remember Gertrude Bell from down at the 5 and 10? She worked there for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
She was the belle of the 5 and 10. And somewhere in this building is her scrapbook.
Oh.
I talked to Skip about it. We're not sure. In those early days, Mary Ann,
I think it's upstairs in the business room.
I looked in the Murphy file and didn't see it. I know.
Might be up in the cupboard.
It might be. When the Historical Society first got going, they didn't know what they were doing. And they were doing their best. And things just went in filing cabinet drawers and, you know, they're cataloging it and they're doing it, but we're still unearthing some of that stuff. So this is a story of Gertrude Bell, who was the Belle of the 5 and 10. Then this is a map of all the one-room schools. And then there's some more information you can hear about that. Okay? So that was the first book that that publications committee published. The second one that they published is titled Grandma Left the Light On, and we sometimes have had people question, that's kind of an odd title, why would you do that? Well, the publications committee told us exactly why they would do that. The theme of Grandma Left the Light On came from Donna Baker, who told us that Arminda Montgomery Shago always left the hall light on until the last of her dozen, count them 12, children was in for the night. Arminda was the matriarch of 2 Grove City building firms, Montgomerys and Shagos. We thought that expression, Grandma left the light on, is symbolic of all those who came before us and left the light on for us, whether in our homes or our businesses. So that's where the title came. And then on the back jacket, there's Arminda standing on the porch waiting for somebody to come home. But this again is stories from Grove City. This chapter is titled Bricks, Sticks, and Stones, and it's about the Travelers Hotel, which is the building you're currently sitting in.
Yeah.
So it's great. You can see our lobby, you can see the rating, that's there. Then the second story that really captured my attention in here was Tom McKnight and McKnight Movers. Tom played clarinet at General Eisenhower's headquarters in London in a 28-piece band, and credits his instrument with saving his life because his outfit had a 75% casualty rate on D-Day. Mary Kay still plays clarinet. She used to up in the Mercer Band. I got break after break after break. And there are great pictures in here. Mary Kay's quoted in that. So that's Grandma Left the Light On. The first one was published in 2004. This was 2009. Then here comes Lillian's book that Lori referenced. Wolf Creek Legacy. Lillian was a reporter for the Allied News, and she got permission from the Allied and their parent company to put these all in a book. It originally was 2 volumes. They're all in this one. And Lillian has such a heart for capturing the stories. Have you heard that saying, when a person dies, a library burns down? And when you think about it, all that knowledge that they had, that library, it's gone. And Lillian has such a heart for that and felt that she needed to capture those stories that were dying down. She says in here, I knew then that their stories were a gift to the future, but now as I edit and revisit these folks and their words, I realize their gift even more. I miss them, I truly do. As I read their stories, I can hear their voices, sometimes shaky with age, sometimes booming with laughter at some remembered goings-on, sometimes cautioning me to attack life in a certain way. If I could speak to them again, I would just tell them, we remember you. You have given us a legacy. So that's her opening. Again, the index in the back, painstaking, is what she has done. But this is the story that really captured me. So I'm reading through here, and I see this picture, obviously, from a one-room school. And as I'm reading, I'm finding out that this young man in row 2, second from the left, is my grandfather. There's Elton Martin, and his days when he was going to Patterson School, one-room school, and to his right is his brother Gilmer Martin. There are several stories about Granddad in here, being up there in Wolf Creek Township. Frank and Elda Sterrett is this story. Those are my grandmother's relatives. She was a Sterrett. So these are treasures to me. So you got a raffle ticket when you come in tonight, and Skip has something she wants to do. She won't tell me what it's going to be. There's a surprise coming. We're going to raffle off 1 copy of each of these books for you here tonight. Somebody's taking them home. They are for sale at a sale price tonight, and there's also a coupon. If you're not ready to buy these tonight, but you want to come back before the end of the month, we'll give you that coupon and you can buy these. These are great books. All right, Miss Skip, what's next?
Okay, I cleaned off my desk this week, which I don't do very often. And I found this CD. And do you have the original? No, that's okay. I had no idea what it was. I don't know where it came from. So I put it in my player. And this is titled The Way We Were. And you've come a long way, baby. The date on this is 2002. So we had, these were our first displays that were set up when we first opened, just in the front room. You can see the Fusiliers. We still have that on display somewhere. Okay, go ahead. Next.
So that's the lobby.
That's the lobby.
I just use the arrows and the search.
Oh, okay.
It is.
Okay.
Now try it.
Now, this one, if I can find the mouse again, there it is. It was, when I tried it before, all I had to do was tap the screen.
Why don't you try the arrow like Lori did?
Yeah.
He did. One of you tried.
It's highlighted, so press there.
No, the arrow down isn't doing it either.
Right.
I don't know what to do. We need this guy helping us out
Yeah.
here.
Have to go.
You wanna be a volunteer?
Tech support is not my specialty.
You're better than we are.
There's another view, there's a stairway. And this was one of the first displays we got, that's still up in the military room. All right, go ahead.
What's that thing on the stairs?
And there's John Hummel and Ed Carlson.
Boy, that's gone.
And here are, looks like wedding pictures.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes was a local photographer, and when he died, his family gave us all his negatives, and we have them out in the library. Okay. Now, this is the room we're in now. Marty, you may remember this.
Well,
You learned how to do drywalling.
yeah.
That's,
Good job.
that's the room that we're sitting in.
And it was originally 2 rooms, right?
It was 2 rooms and the partitions had been taken down, yes. And this is the door that goes out there. And then that alcove there. This is the back entrance. You can see there's a difference in the brickwork here. We think it originally, the agriculture room, the scouting room, and the real estate room have cement floors. We think that was probably an open sleeping porch that was bricked in later. Now, this is sideways.
Yeah.
This is the kitchen. These are the cabinets that are out there that are still there. And they were painted brown and yellow. Okay, go on. There's this doorway going out into the kitchen from in here. And there you can see the printing press.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice.
This is what the floors were like. This is indoor, outdoor carpeting, and then down to the cement. This is the scouting room. This is the window that's in the scouting room, looking into the storage room that's across from the sports room.
And I'll bet out that door, right beside that was where you would go out to that porch.
Yes, and this is one of the bedrooms that had the sink in it. All the rooms had sinks, and then there was a tub room and a shower room in the halls and 2 toilet rooms. We took all the sinks out, except in the room that is a hotel room. This is Mike Adams, who was the second president. And this is probably the college room, based on that corner, looking out. You know, I've looked at these pictures and I thought, why did we ever buy this building?
Second.
But you can see the condition of the windows, and they were all like that. The narrow hallways back. Turquoise woodwork. Whew.
I would like that.
And the radiators in all the rooms.
You get the wallpaper, same place they got the sporting goods?
I bet you.
The day we got the bank.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wait a minute. There's more.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Nobody else wanted it.
Yeah.
Right. These are the steps going down the basement.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Now there's one more, I
One more?
think.
Oh. I don't know where it is. If it's. Oh, there it is. Found it.
That's the college room. Now there's still another one.
One more. Okay, we'll keep.
Doesn't look like it.
Keep I hate this lack of a mouse. Lost it someplace.
My uncle used to stay here
There it
because
is.
my aunt was going to
There it
Grove
is.
City College, so he'd come up on weekends to visit.
Yeah.
And do you remember where the furniture store was?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes. Well, that was
Here
like a rooming house or something.
The furniture store.
Well, before it was
we,
furniture.
oh, okay.
And my grandmother stayed there because one summer she came up to Grove City to take some classes. And if a boy wanted to take you out,
There's
went
Mike
got in a
Adams
canoe and
back in the
went up
office.
and down the creek.
And there's at least another one.
Yeah, there's several more here. I found it.
Okay. As when Becky said things came in and they were just kind of put somewhere, that's an example of it. If we can't find things, they're probably in that stack somewhere.
We still had a computer down the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the Arthur Armour shop that we're in the process of dismantling and going to set up a mock forge in the basement. Saturday, we had a group and we moved most of the equipment out of it that we're going to be using. This is an example of the inside of it. And when you look at that, you can see what just a mess it is. And we're trying to call out the important pieces to set up a forge in the basement that you can look at it and see what a forge was like. Gary was one that worked very hard. There's Tom working on that piece of equipment,
Yeah.
which now is in our basement.
Yeah.
We just have a couple more pieces to bring. There's my car. Somebody's parked the only
Well,
car.
there I am.
That's what the outside looked like when we bought it.
In a handicap spot.
There's at least one more.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 more.
Okay. We were fortunate. Becky said what a wonderful bicentennial celebration it was. There was over $40,000 left from that bicentennial celebration. And in
Wow.
addition to giving us the money for the hotel, Grove City Borough gave us all that money that was left. And then Dick Stevenson and Dick Stevenson was the state senator, Bob Robbins gave us grants. And we replaced the windows, we replaced the furnace. So we had really a lot of money to get started, which we needed. First thing we had to do was put on a new roof. The roof leaked the first weekend we bought the building. We had originally thought about putting 2 display windows, one on each side of the entrance. I'm glad we didn't, because they are a lot of work to change, and keeps them updated.
That's it, Skip, that's the last one.
There isn't another one?
No,
Okay.
no.
Guess you're gonna have to do a swimming deal.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
song and dance.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted you to see this. We tell stories about the way it was. Well, this is the way it was.
Yeah.
Okay, get out your tickets. The time has come.
You're sure to win, kid.
Shake them up. Skip, you'll be the drawer.
Reason I can see what number Oh, the numbers.
Oh, how nice. How nice. 362011.
Last 3 numbers are?
011.
Oh, one. Oh, there you go. That's the first one going out. Okay, second one. Is for Grandma.
009.
009.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah,
Look
you said
at
that?
you. Yeah.
Oh, so we're coming back at you.
I have to make sure.
Yeah, I know. And the last one, the way we were.
They don't have this one, so that's good.
020.
020. Ah, Joseph, all right. Okay, I have 5 jobs for you before you leave. Stop and buy a book. Become a member. Ask about being a volunteer. I know what this one is. 4, I don't remember.
Donations.
Donations, yes, donations. Remember that left elbow? 5, enjoy some refreshments, and thanks so much for coming out tonight.